Hey there crew, it's Mark from Mark Your Pages, and in today's video we're going to have some fun with some stamps, and we're going to create a monthly page inside of our B5 size bullet journal using a really cool radial design utilizing the stamps from the vintage typewriter as well as the everyday bookish stamp sets. The materials we're going to need today are going to be our notebook. You can do this in any size notebook, B5, square, A5, whatever you want. You just have to size accordingly. We're also going to need a nice ruler that's going to fit this entire page, especially for the B5 size. You are going to need a pencil so we can mark out parts of our page. You're also going to need a compass. So whether it's this really cool kind of kid safety one that exists here that I love using, or even kind of that old school point with pencil, you're going to need something to create your radial patterns, your circles inside of your journal. Of course, because we're using stamps, you're going to need these as well, so make sure you have them off to the side. You're going to need your acrylic block as well as some ink, whether you want to use one that came as a part of the set or any color of your choice. And the next thing I have is totally optional, but I love these stamp chamois so much to easily clean my stamps as I'm going along with them. I'll be sure to link those in the supplies, in the blog post, and the descriptions below. The very first thing that we're going to do inside of our notebook is we're going to mark the center lines for the vertical and horizontal. So if you're inside of a B5 size Archer and Olive notebook, that's going to be 16 squares over and 23 squares down from the top. Along with your vertical and horizontal lines, we're also going to need diagonal lines on our page as well. You can easily do that by lining up the top corner and the bottom corner of your dots on your page and getting that straight through the center. Once you know where the center of your page is, you're going to start to draw your circles out. These don't need to be any certain amount of space in between your circles. I sometimes like to go about a ½ an inch to an inch or so, but I'm not really measuring, to be honest. I'm just looking at my space. The very first thing that I like to do with any type of page is pick kind of my center piece, what I want to start in the center and then work my way out from. For this one today, I think I'm going to go with the typewriter from the vintage typewriter set. If you ever want to get placement before you ink your stamp, you can actually lay them with the flat side up to get a little bit of placement and then sit your acrylic block right on top, and then you're ready to go. We're going to go ahead and ink our stamp first and then find our placement on the page and give it a nice press down. Once I have my big centerpiece down, I like to think about any large elements that I want to have around the rest of my page. So actually inside of the vintage typewriter set, there's a fountain pen that we're going to use, and I think that would look really awesome on these verticals and these diagonals and horizontals radiating from the center. For this one, I'm going to go ahead and line everything up just on that outside radius of this circle as I'm going around these lines. So using that as my starting point and angling out. The circles that we created on here are our guidelines. So for this design, I'm going to use the one that's coming out just outside of that typewriter, and that's where I'm going to sit the bottom of this fountain pen as we're going around our space. It's kind of like my reference point. If at any point your design might go off of the edge of your page, you can grab a scrap piece of paper and just sit it off here to the side, and that way that will absorb any of the ink versus it going on to a different part of the page or a different part of your paper. Now that I have my really big elements, I'll start to fill in the smaller spaces with some other ones. My two favorite from the bookish are the binder clip as well as the magnifying glass. So let's start to include those in this pattern as well. Because this page isn't perfectly square, we have a little bit of a size difference here. So instead of being able to use this binder clip radiating all the way around the inside of these lines, we're just going to put them on the outside where they fit, and then we'll find another element to put in between the other ones. This magnifying glass is actually perfect because it starts small with that handle and then opens up a little bit bigger at the top where the glass is, and it fits perfectly in between these pens. You'll see that I'm using these guidelines as I'm going around just to make sure that I'm getting somewhat close spacing that's nice and even all the way around this pattern. Also, don't be afraid to repeat patterns as you're going around. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and flip the magnifying glass over, and that's going to meet the top of my fountain pens going all the way around the page. Something to think about as you're stamping around your page is your vertical as well as your horizontal. In this case, I'm going to put my paper clips here to the side because I have a lot of elements that are radiating kind of vertically or out from the center. And this is going to give me a really cool look as it's almost like spinning around the page. One of the hardest things when creating these patterns is knowing when to stop because you can just keep going and keep adding and keep doing things like that. But I think right now we're in a really good spot. Everything feels really nice and filled in. It feels really cool as it's radiating off the page. And now we're ready for the last part of this process. Before we do this last part, we're going to make sure that everything is dry on the page. So I like to give it about a minute or two alone, not touching anything, just to let the ink really dry. Once you give it that amount of time, you're going to take an eraser and you're going to lightly erase all the pencil line coming all the way out. Be sure to take your time, especially when you're coming up towards the edges. Make sure to erase out towards the edge versus trying to bring it back in, and that way you don't accidentally wrinkle the corner of your page. Now that we've erased all the pencil lines, you are ready to make this a monthly page. So some ideas for you, especially if you're using this set, you could put the month name inside of the inks if you wanted to. You could also come in here with colored pencils or marker or watercolor and fill some of this in as well if you'd like to add a little pop of color. I personally just love the black and white of these pages. It makes me feel really excited to get a month started. So now that you've seen me do this for myself, I want to see your creations as well. Make sure you tag Archer and Olive and myself, Mark, your pages on any of the creatives that you do with these radial patterns and your stamps. I cannot wait to see exactly what you're looking for. If you want to try things out before you fully commit, down in the descriptions of the blog, we have a free printable for you that you can print out and use as a practice sheet for yourself with your stamps before you put it down inside of your pages. I hope you enjoyed everything today. Can't wait to see your creations, and we'll talk to you soon. See ya.